The manager of a large city zoo was drafting a letter to order a pair of animals. He sat at his computer and typed the following sentence. I would like to place an order for 2 mongooses to be delivered at your earliest convenience. He stared at the screen, focusing on that odd word, mongooses. Then he deleted the word and added another so that the sentence now read, I would like to place an order for 2 mongooses to be delivered at your earliest convenience. Not sure of the correct spelling and not wanting to make a fool of himself, he finally typed, I would like to place an order for a mongoose to be delivered at your earliest convenience. P.S. Make that 2. Teacher asks the class what they need in their household. Susie says they need a new fridge, as their current one is too old. Joey says they need a microwave because it would be faster to warm up meals. Teacher asks little Johnny what they need. We don't need anything. I'm sure your family needs something. No, I'm sure we don't. My dad came home drunk last night and puked all over the carpet, and my mom said, Great! That's all we needed. One day, the wife comes home with a spectacular diamond ring. Where did you get that ring? Her husband asks. Well, she replies, my boss and I played the lottery and we won, so I bought it with my share of the winnings. A week later, his wife comes home with a long, shiny fur coat. Where did you get that coat? Her husband asks. She replies, my boss and I played the lottery and we won again, so I bought it with my share of the winnings. Another week later, his wife comes home, driving a flaming red Ferrari. You guessed it, her share of the lottery winnings. That night, the wife asks her husband to run her a nice warm bath while she gets undressed. When she enters the bathroom, she finds that there is barely enough water in the bath to cover the bath plug. What the f*** is this? She asks her husband. Well, he replies, we don't want to get your frickin' lottery ticket wet, do we? A man was driving his motor caravan when he saw the flash of a traffic camera. He figured that his picture had been taken for exceeding the limit, even though he knew that he was not speeding. Just to be sure, he went around the block and passed the same spot, driving even more slowly, but again the camera flashed. Now he began to think that this was quite funny, so he drove even slower as he passed the area again, but the traffic camera again flashed. He tried a 4th time with the same result. He did this a 5th time and was now laughing when the camera flashed as he rolled past, this time at a snail's pace. 2 weeks later, he got 5 tickets in the mail for driving without a seatbelt. A young man met a beautiful girl and agreed to spend the night with her for $500. So they did. Before he left, he told her that he did not have any cash with him, but that he would have his secretary write a check and mail it to her, calling the payment rent for apartment. On the way to his office, he regretted it and decided it wasn't worth the price. So he had his secretary send a check for $250 and enclosed the following note. Dear Madam, enclosed, find a check in the amount of $250 for rent of your apartment. I am not sending the amount agreed upon because when I rented the apartment, I was under the impression that it had never been occupied, that there was plenty of heat, that it was small enough to make me cozy and feel at home. Last night, however, I found it had been previously occupied, that there was no heat, and that it was entirely too large. Upon receipt of the note, the girl immediately returned the check for $250 with the following note. Dear Sir, first of all, I cannot understand how you expect a beautiful apartment to remain unoccupied indefinitely. As for the heat, there is heat if you know how to turn it on. Regarding the space, the apartment is, indeed, of regular size, but if you don't have enough furniture to fill it, please don't blame the landlady. Please be so kind as to send a check for the full amount of $500, or I'll be forced to contact your current landlady. A turkey dreamed of reaching the top of a tall tree. A bull suggested eating his droppings for extra energy. Oddly enough, the turkey followed the advice and reached the top. But the story didn't end there. A farmer saw the turkey and shot it down. Mr. Johnson boarded his flight to New York City and approached the aisle seat he had booked. To his surprise, a blonde woman was already sitting there. "Excuse me," Mr. Johnson said, trying to stay calm. "That's my seat. I specifically booked it." The woman looked up and said confidently, "I'm blonde, I'm smart, and I'm sitting in this aisle seat until the plane lands in New York City." Frustrated, Mr. Johnson checked her ticket. It clearly showed she was assigned to the middle seat. "Your ticket says you're supposed to sit in the middle," he said, pointing to her ticket. "I booked this aisle seat because I'm 6'5" and I need the extra space." "You're what, 5'1"? "You'll be fine in the middle seat." The blonde, unfazed, repeated, "I'm blonde, I'm smart, and I'm sitting in this aisle seat until the plane lands in New York City." The woman in the window seat chimed in, "You should listen to him. My ex was tall, only 6'1", and he always needed the aisle seat to avoid feeling cramped." Still, the blonde replied, "I'm blonde, I'm smart, and I'm sitting in this aisle seat until the plane lands in New York City." At his wits' end, Mr. Johnson called over a flight attendant. He explained the situation, and the attendant nodded before leaning down to whisper something in the blonde's ear. Suddenly, the blonde's expression changed. Without a word, she moved to the middle seat. Relieved, Mr. Johnson sat down in the aisle seat. After the plane landed in New York, his curiosity got the better of him. He approached the flight attendant and asked, "What did you say to her?" The attendant smiled. "I told her the aisle seat wasn't going to New York City." One evening, a man was at home watching TV and eating peanuts. He'd toss them in the air and then catch them in his mouth. In the middle of catching one, his wife asked him a question. And as he turned to answer her, a peanut fell in his ear. He tried and tried to dig it out, but succeeded in only pushing it in deeper. He called his wife for assistance, and after hours of trying, they became worried and went to the hospital. As they were ready to go out the door, their daughter came home with her date. After being informed of the problem, their daughter's date said he could get the peanut out. The young man told the father to sit down, then proceeded to shove 2 fingers up the father's nose and told him to blow hard. When the father blew, the peanut flew out of his ear. The mother and daughter jumped and yelled for joy. The young man insisted that it was nothing. Once he was gone, the mother turned to the father and said, "That's so wonderful. Isn't he smart? What do you think he's going to be when he grows up?" The father replied, "From the smell of his fingers, our son-in-law." A woman was stepping out of the shower when the doorbell rang. Her husband was getting ready to shower, so she quickly wrapped herself in a towel and answered the door. It was Bob, the neighbor. Without skipping a beat, Bob said, "I'll give you $800 to drop the towel." After a moment of thought, the woman decided $800 was worth it. She dropped the towel, collected the cash, and closed the door. When she returned upstairs, her husband asked, "Who was at the door?" "It was Bob," she replied. "Oh, great. Did he say anything about the $800 he owes me?" A woman asks her husband at breakfast time, "Would you like some bacon and eggs, a slice of toast, and maybe some grapefruit juice and coffee?" He declines. "Thanks for asking, but I'm not hungry right now. It's this Viagra," he says. "It's really taken the edge off my appetite." At lunchtime, she asked him if he would like something. "How about a bowl of soup, homemade muffins, or a cheese sandwich?" He declines. "The Viagra," he says, "has really spoiled my need for food." Come dinner time, she asks if he wants anything to eat. "Would you like a juicy ribeye steak and some scrumptious apple pie? Or maybe a rotisserie chicken or tasty stir-fry?" He declines again. "No," he says. "It's got to be the Viagra. I'm still not hungry." "Well," she says, "would you mind getting off me? I'm bloody starving." A sales rep, an admin clerk, and their manager found a dusty lamp while heading to lunch. They rubbed it, and a genie appeared, offering 1 wish per person. The admin clerk quickly wished, I want to be in the Bahamas on a speedboat without a care in the world. Poof! She vanished. The sales rep followed. I want to be in Hawaii, relaxing on the beach with endless piña coladas. Poof! He disappeared. Finally, the manager said, I want those two back in the office after lunch. A man walks into a bar and sees an old man sitting by himself. He sits next to the man, who obviously already had a few, and starts a conversation. The old man tells him, You see that dock out there? Built it myself, handcrafted each piece, and it's the best dock in town. But do they call me McGregor the dock builder? No! And you see that bridge over there? I built that. It took me 2 months through rain, sleet, and scorching weather, but do they call me McGregor the bridge builder? No. And you see that pier over there? I built that, the best pier in the county. But do they call me McGregor the pier builder? No. The old man then leans in closer. But you one sheep. A priest offered a nun a ride. As they drove, the nun crossed her legs, revealing some ankle. The priest, flustered, nearly lost control of the car. Unable to resist temptation, he slid his hand up her leg. The nun calmly said, Father, remember Psalm 129. Embarrassed, he pulled his hand back. But temptation struck again, and once more the nun reminded him, Father, remember Psalm 129. When he got home, the priest looked up the verse. Go forth and seek. Further up, you will find glory. A crow sat high in a tree, doing absolutely nothing. A rabbit, inspired, asked if he could also sit and do nothing. Sure, said the crow. The rabbit lay on the ground, enjoying his new life of leisure. Unfortunately, a fox soon spotted him and made him lunch. A husband and wife were celebrating their 50th anniversary. That night, the wife approached her husband wearing the exact same negligee she had worn on their wedding night. She looked at her husband and said, Honey, do you remember this? He looked up at her and said, Yes, dear, I do. You wore that same negligee the night we were married. She said, That's right. Do you remember what you said to me that night? He nodded and said, Yes, dear, I still remember. Well, what was it? She asked. He responded, As I remember, I said, Oh, baby, I'm going to suck the life out of those big teats and screw your brains out. She giggled and said, Yes, honey, that's exactly what you said. So now it's 50 years later, and I'm in the same negligee I wore that night. What do you have to say tonight? Again, he looked up at her, and he replied, Mission accomplished. A little girl was on summer break, and some guys showed up to work on the house across the street. Being the curious type, she decided to walk over and offer her help. The guys said sure, of course she could. So they gave her little jobs to do all week, bring these screws over to Ray, and that sort of thing. After the week was over, they decided to give her a little payment, and handed her an envelope with $50 in it. When she came home that day and showed Mommy her pay, Mommy suggested that they go to the bank and start a savings account. They went to the bank, and the little girl proudly showed the money to the teller and told her she would like to start an account. The teller was impressed and asked, Where did you get this money? I was working on a house, said the little girl. The teller replied, Oh, and will you be working on the house next week too? The little girl replied, Yeah, if we ever get those f***ing bricks. Bob had long heard the stories of an amazing family tradition. It seems that his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather had all been able to walk on water on their 18th birthday. On that special day, they'd each walked across the lake to the pub on the far side for their first legal drink. So when Bob's 18th birthday came around, he and his pal Mickey took a boat out to the middle of the lake. Bob stepped out of the boat and nearly drowned. Mickey just barely managed to pull him to safety. Furious and confused, Bob went to see his grandmother. "Grandma," he asked, "'tis my 18th birthday, so why can't I walk across the lake like my father, his father, and his father before him?" Granny looked deeply into Bob's troubled blue eyes and said, "Because your father, your grandfather, and your great-grandfather were all born in December when the lake is frozen, and you were born in August, you f***ing idiot." A Canadian was having a coffee and croissants with butter and jam in a cafe when an American tourist chewing gum sat down next to him. The Canadian politely ignored the American, who, nevertheless, started up a conversation. The American snapped his gum and said, "You Canadian folk eat the whole bread?" The Canadian frowned, annoyed with being bothered during his breakfast, and replied, "Of course." The American blew a huge bubble. "We don't. In the States, we only eat what's inside. The crusts we collect in a container, recycle them, transform them into croissants, and sell them to Canada." The American had a smirk on his face. The Canadian listened in silence. The American persisted. "Do you eat jam with your bread?" Sighing, the Canadian replied, "Of course." Cracking his gum between his teeth, the American said, "We don't. In the States, we eat fresh fruit for breakfast. Then we put all the peels, seeds, and leftovers in containers, recycle them, transform them into jam, and sell it to Canada." The Canadian then asked, "Do you have sex in the States?" The American smiled and said, "Why, of course we do." The Canadian leaned closer to him and asked, "And what do you do with the condoms once you've used them?" "We throw them away, of course." Now it was the Canadian's turn to smile. "We don't. In Canada, we put them in a container, recycle them, melt them down into chewing gum, and sell them to the United States. Why do you think it's called Wrigley's?" An Army major is assigned to a troubled base. After numerous reports of lax discipline and unruly behavior at a particular Army post, a major is assigned to take charge and straighten the place out. He arrives, and indeed, the place is a mess. Nobody's shaved, there are beer bottles everywhere, and there are grubby uniforms and unpolished boots. Outraged, the major calls for the sergeant, who arrives and tells the major, "I'm the sergeant, but everyone just calls me Biff. We're pretty casual around here." "So I see," the major says. "Tell me about this base." "Well, sir," Biff begins, "it's pretty chill. For instance, every Monday after chow, we load up on beer and whiskey and we just get screaming drunk. It's a riot." Major: "Young man, there will be no consumption of alcohol on this base." Biff: "It's all cool, dude. Tuesdays, and man, Tuesdays. We grab a bale of the local weed, smoke up, eat Cheetos, and laugh our asses off till sunup. Wait till you try it." Major: "There will be no illicit drug use on my base." Biff: "Whoa, okay, but Wednesdays are still cool, right? We get a dozen of the local hookers in the mess tent, and we have the most insane orgy you've ever seen. Gang bang city, dude." Major: "Sexual relations with women outside of marriage? On an Army base? I'll not stand for it." Biff: "Say, you're not one of them homosexuals, are you?" Major: "Certainly not." Biff: "I guess you don't want to hear about Thursdays, then." John was sitting outside his local pub one day, enjoying a quiet pint and generally feeling good about himself, when a nun suddenly appeared at his table and started decrying the evils of drink. "You should be ashamed of yourself, young man. Drinking is a sin. Alcohol is the blood of the devil." Now John gets pretty annoyed about this and goes on the offensive. "How do you know this, sister?" "My Mother Superior told me so." "But have you ever had a drink yourself? How can you be sure that what you are saying is right?" "Don't be ridiculous. Of course I have never taken alcohol myself." "Then let me buy you a drink. If you still believe afterwards that it is evil, I will give up drink for life." "How could I, a nun, sit outside this public house drinking? I'll get the barman to put it in a teacup for you, then no one will ever know." The nun reluctantly agrees, so John goes inside to the bar. "Another pint for me and a triple vodka on the rocks." Then he lowers his voice and says to the barman, "And could you put the vodka in a teacup?" The barman replies, "Oh, it's that nun again, is it?" A mathematician and an engineer play a game to get laid. At the other end of this room, the game master points out, is a beautiful, young, naked, consenting woman. If you reach her, she will fulfill any and all of your fantasies. The mathematician and engineer both look at each other with excitement. The only rule is that each step you take toward the bed can only be half the size of the last step. The mathematician studies the situation for a moment, frowns, and then remarks, "Oh, forget it. I know how this one ends. I'm going home." The engineer also studies the situation, grins, and then begins walking toward the woman. "Didn't you hear me?" shouts the mathematician. "It's a mathematical certainty you'll never reach her." "Perhaps you're right," he says, "but soon I'll be close enough that for all practical purposes it won't matter." A woman was in bed with her lover when she heard her husband opening the front door. In a panic, she told her lover, "Hurry, stand in the corner, don't move until I tell you to. Just shut your eyes and pretend you're a statue." At the moment, her husband walked into the room. "What's this, honey?" he asked. "Oh, it's just a statue," she replied nonchalantly. "The Smiths bought one for their bedroom. I liked it so much I got one for us, too." They went to sleep, and then around 3 o'clock in the morning, the husband got out of bed, went to the kitchen, and came back with a sandwich and a glass of milk. "Here," he said to the statue, "eat something. I stood like an idiot at the Smiths for 3 days and nobody offered me so much as a glass of water."